special Saturday morning edition. Hang on, guys. Let me see. Let me share this. Give me a shout. Give me a hello. Who's the first one joining us? Give us a hello in the comments there. Joining us, give us a hello in the comments there. Okay, that's working. Beautiful. Copy link. Let's share it. Hello, special Saturday morning edition. Why the odds suck on Zed Run. Let's stand by for today's show. Give me 1 sec. Hang on a sec. We'll share this over here. Why the odds bad for Zed Run? I messed up that title, didn't I? I'll fix it later. English. You wouldn't think it was my first language, would you? All right, guys, can you hear me loud and clear? I think you can. I did a test run. Good to see you, Galactic Curiosities. Good to see you, BFP. Who else have we got here that's lurking in the shadows that doesn't want to say hello to me this morning and just wants to hear all the juicy information? Staying shy. Guys, if you haven't already, hit that like button, hit the sub button, of course, because hello networking, good to have you here. GC, good morning to you too, already said g'day. We're going to talk about odds, and actually I should give a shout out. Who was it? Whoops. What am I looking for here? Is it that one? Yeah, that one. Who was talking about this yesterday? Let me have a squiz if I can find that. G'day, Ethan. 1 sec. I need to give some credit to Nex. NEXXX was talking about the odds yesterday, and it just hit me. It just completely hit me that he was onto something that I completely agree with, and that is that the odds are not necessarily a good thing for the gameplay element of Zed Run racing. Now, whilst they don't affect, I suppose, the breeding all that much, for racing, yeah, Biob, hello, smash that like button. Yeah, the odds, it's an interesting one. What do you guys think? I mean, I've been around nearly a year now, and I was one of the first ones to, well, I guess really publicly say how accurate and important the odds were. But after a year's experience, to be honest, like racing is pretty, you know, from a gameplay perspective, it's relatively boring. You either have it or you don't. You've got a good horse or you don't. There's really, and look, we'll debate this and add some questions and add your thoughts into the comments, but you've really got the horse or you don't, and there's really not a lot of improvement that you can do through selective distance choices and selective races. Yes, that is an element of the gameplay, but the odds take a lot of the mystery out of the scenario. So with the odds, basically, I can determine whether a horse is good or not after about 3 races. Now, what I want to ask you guys there watching along at home, or wherever you might be, is should that be a thing? Should I, or anyone else with a decent eye and decent knowledge of the game, be able to determine whether a horse is good, bad, or somewhat indifferent within 3 or 4 races? I don't think so. I think that takes away from the gameplay. I would like to be racing a horse, a future offspring, for the 200th race and still be wondering, oh, does he really like gate 11? Or is he more a gate 8? Or does he like the rain, or did he just get lucky in a couple of races? You know, these elements are going to come. We're talking about fatigue, we're talking about weather, we're talking about gate preference, we're talking about location preferences. But the big, huge issue, the big elephant in the room, which I only, as I said, was highlighted by Nex in the Discord yesterday, is that if the odds are going to reflect all of these things, okay, so currently the odds reflect how good your horse is in a specific distance versus the field when you enter that race. And that takes a lot of the mystery out of it. Like if you enter a horse into a relatively weakish race and it gets 30 to 1 at 1200, then it's game over. It's game over for that horse at 1200. Okay, and look, I'd like to remove the odds, and that horse that's 30 to 1, he or she comes second. You think, ooh, hang on a minute. This might be a really nice horse at 1200, but then you race it 10 more times and you get maybe a third and a fourth and a fifth and a few tenths and a 12th, and you think, oh, not really that profitable. But, you know, maybe we'll try a couple more races just to see. But currently, one race at that distance and it's game over. There's no mystery. The odds are so, and it's not the point that the odds are there. It's not necessarily the point that the odds are there. It's that they are just incredibly accurate, that it takes all of that sort of mystery away from it. I mean, if the odds weren't there whatsoever and your horse runs a first or a second in that distance in its first race, second race, whatever it happens to be, you start thinking, oh, I might have something here. And then the next race it gets another place, and the next race it gets another place and maybe another win, and you think, this is a gun horse. But currently we're seeing horses that are doing that with 12 or 15 to 1, and we know, well, if we keep racing this horse for 50 races, you know, those percentages are likely to really significantly drop off. And that's taking, for me, that's taking a lot of the racing fun and a lot of the racing mystery, and most importantly, taking a lot of the gameplay out of Zed Run. Because when you've got a cheat sheet, you're essentially, you know, you're starting off Super Mario Brothers with all the cheat codes, and you go, well, this horse sucks. Out the window for that one. Let's try another one. Oh, $6 horse. This is a good horse. It's like seeing the underlying cheat code for the horses, because you should be racing 40 to 1ers 10 or 20 times before you figure out that they pretty well suck. Okay? Yeah, Luke says, that's why I'm excited for more variables. Now, I tend to agree with this, but if the odds are going to reflect the variables like they currently do, the odds currently reflect the distance preferences, and if the odds are going to reflect the gate preferences and the weather preferences and the location preferences and any particular preferences, then the odds ruin that as well. Okay, because the odds are the underlying key to how your horse is going to perform long term. So what I'm suggesting is the game needs to switch those odds a little bit, or even hide them completely, and maybe derive the odds from pure form and history over that distance and history over that box, more like is done in pure horse racing, than having the cheat code to the underlying DNA of the horse reflected in a number, which gives away pretty much the entire game, if you like. B Yob, how much is Y2K2K worth? You bought him today. Maybe an ETH or two, mate. Just joking, I'm sure you paid more than that. I don't know. Look, to be honest, it's hard to tell. I think Y2K2K is a very good horse and looks like it might, you know, it's got reasonable genetics to go on to be a good breeder. So it's very hard to say. I mean, what would I pay for it as opposed to what you would pay for it or someone else is a completely different story. So if you're happy, that's all that matters. And I'm sure other people will want to breed with that particular horse. BFP, Better Financial, says, sad my Z1 hasn't pulled sub 10 in anything other than a Griffin. Yeah, mate, and doesn't that suck the fun out? You know, that same Z1 might have had 2 or 3 places, 4 places in its first 5 or 6 races, and you're thinking, oh, is this the next Breathless Edge? Is this the next Phantom Pacer? Is it the next Baroque? You know, you start thinking, oh, this is a pretty good horse. And then over the next 20 to 50 races, you sort of, oh, it's an okay horse. But at the moment, we're really judging Z1s really, really harshly based on those, if they can't get under the 10 odds. We're saying, well, this is probably not that good. But have a look at a horse like Zion, which has produced Y2K2K and produced Wild Kata and a few other gems in there as well. It's not a great racer, but it's a great breeder. Now, if we didn't have the odds information on that horse, we would think, oh, this thing is special, really special. but those underlying odds are way too accurate to maintain any level of mystery in the gameplay. And I think that really affects the longevity of this. Now, potential solutions, I'm not one for just having a rant and not, offering potential solutions. I think number one, we could look at completely hiding the odds and then look in the future at deriving the odds from the history of the horse. So whether you have, initially before the Griffin, you might have 3 trial runs where you can run your horse at 1200, 3 different distances of your choice, which would then set up the odds for the Griffin, for the maiden, the Griffin, whatever you want to call it. And then from there, the odds should be derived from the horse's history in any particular discipline, if you like, whether that be a combination of distance and box preference and weather conditions. So that could be the first option, is remove that really, really accurate DNA-based odds system. I think that could go all together, and I think that would be incredibly beneficial to the longevity of the gameplay and the mystery of the gameplay. I would be a big advocate for that. Number two, now I don't know how this works for the probability of the fairness of the game, or whatever that fancy word is they use. But I would like to, if they don't remove the odds, I would like to see them make it less accurate. So for example, we're hearing this bandied about that the odds are derived from roughly 10,000 simulations, and that gives us the odds, which then one of those simulations is chosen as a race event. Now, I have an issue with that to some degree as well, in the fact that how accurate those odds are going to be. And if one of those simulations from the 10,000 is actually chosen, I don't really like that either. Let's think about this from another angle. If we were to reduce those simulations and make them less accurate, like something like 10,000 or even 1,000, make them really inaccurate. Make them really inaccurate. So, Breathless Edge could be anywhere from $3 to 20 to 1, depending on if he gets lucky within those 1,000 simulations. They could be really affected by that. But within that, it creates that higher or that more mystery and leaves, doesn't show you everything in just one snapshot. Because with 1,000 simulations, you could get one horse, winning, who knows, 10, 100 times, when it's, generally only going to finish 50 times if you were to run that 1,000 simulation over and over again. So those odds could be, less accurate. But for me, I'd like to see the odds hidden altogether, because I think it's really detracting from the overall gameplay and the overall longevity of gameplay. At the moment, I'm not racing at the moment. There's no interest, because I don't really have horses that I think are sublimely competitive. So I'm like, I just won't race. It's not fun. But if there was a lot of mystery and I didn't know that my horses were either really sucky or a bit average, I'd be keeping on putting them in there, particularly in those lower races. If you look at the races now, if we switch over, and this might come back to bite me on the butt, but if we have a look at some of the races ready to run here, let's have a look at next to run. And what I've been noticing is it's all horses that the owners pretty much know that they've got the goods. Okay, let's have a look at this Class 4 2400. And look at the horses you got here. They're all good to a degree. I mean, that one's somewhat unproven, and so is this one. But the rest of them, proven. And I guess you're going to get that regardless, but it would be nice if we weren't really sure exactly how good some of these horses were. Now, I've been purposefully ignoring you guys on the chat here so I could sort of get my point, my 2 cents across on why I feel like the odds are detrimental to the game. Let me just see what the questions have popped up here. From a break-even standpoint, I like the offspring versus breeding. I think Biob is talking about Y2K2K. Yeah, Sammy, you decrease the potential population by creating it's not a bigger barrier though. I think it's a lesser barrier to a degree. And we certainly need, with that in mind, I certainly think you would need to split the races up based on experience of the horse to a degree. Okay, so by removing the odds, yes, it becomes more of a barrier to learn about that particular horse. But then we probably need to isolate the horses that have ran 500 times and the owner, has a fairly clear view of how that horse runs, as opposed to a horse that's only had 10, 20 or 50 races. Once you get to 100 races, maybe you move up to a new class system or something like that. Maybe there needs to be something like that. But at the moment, the accuracy of the odds for me are really a huge takeaway from the longevity of gameplay. Like what the type of thing that's going to give these sort of projects longevity is the ability to hold a player in the game through mystery and discovery. And when you can discover that your horse sucks or is good in as limited space as 3 races, it just takes so much away from that. It just takes so much away from that. I mean, at least, take the dream away from us slowly. Okay, take it away from us slowly. Allow that 40 to 1 to run and come second and give us a little bit of hope for another 10 or 15 races before we really discover that that horse is poo, in my opinion. Yeah, be obs something to give some inaccuracy. Bob says maybe 2 variables should be randomly chosen that are not reflected in the odds. Something to have more inaccuracy. Like, to be honest, why can't we just base the odds on the historical performance of the horse? Okay, that's not that hard. We can absolutely create an algorithm that would do that, and it would then add more mystery to what the underlying DNA of that horse is. Currently, it's being revealed in the first 1 or 2 races that you enter. How good that horse is at that distance in those conditions is being revealed way too early, in my opinion. Yeah, this is, slow picking. What about all the people that have capitalised on already on knowing what their horse's underlying DNA looks like? Yeah, hence why we probably need an early trainers class or something where, a class where your horses can run up to 100 races and being in the same class as horses that also don't really know what's going on, okay, as opposed to brand new horses having 1 or 2 races, having to come up against the likes of Zombie Boy and Bub's Gold, or whatever that horse is called, and Breathless Edge and Grandeur that have had 300 or 400 races. Okay, there'd have to be another class to equate for that, where horses that with known odds go up against horses that have that experience. Okay, that absolutely. I mean, whenever you change something, there's going to be other variables that weren't potentially thought of and potential new issues. But the biggest problem for me currently as a gamer, and I know that a lot of you are gamers, I've been a gamer, pretty much all my life, and the games that keep you intrigued are not the silly mobile phone games that you can figure out in 30 seconds. They're fun for about what? You guys have the same experience. They're fun for a day or 2, but they don't give you that constant discovery and constant intrigue and mystery and sense of achievement that, those real adventure games where there's constantly, things to achieve and things to unwrap and things to discover. At this point, with the odds, in my opinion, it's making the game more like a cheap mobile phone game where, the racing element, the breeding element, completely different. There's a lot of intrigue and a lot of mystery there, but the racing element is all discovered as soon as you understand how important those odds are. Yeah, O'Wiley, yeah, maybe the odds shouldn't show up until 10 or 20 paid races. Yeah. Well, I mean, we can have odds, after one race and you get one win, then after that Griffin, that particular horse goes up against other horses that have, maybe one win or no wins or a second or a third. And you sort of go, well, based on a few other factors, maybe this horse is a favourite. And you think, well, I just won that race and now the next race I'm a favourite. But if you don't keep up that performance, you slowly drop. And that's what it's all about horse racing as well. Like, a lot of these horses that come from pretty ordinary, and then you can also base it on the bloodstock of the parents to some degree as well, early days. So what comes from great bloodstock, chances are this might be a reasonable horse, so we'll attribute some relatively shorter odds because it won its first race and it's got great parents and its siblings are pretty good. Then that's how the odds are formed. That's how bookmakers create odds. Not because they can take a syringe, well, that happens too to a degree, and pull the DNA and say, well, you've got the speed genes and you've got the this genes and you've got the 2,000 metre genes and you've got the mud runner genes, so you're going to be a $3 favourite. No, please no. Please no. That's just too obvious and too easy to follow along with. Let's do it more organically and discover these horses over 100 races. There'll be some people that disagree, there always is. Think that it's to my benefit. I don't think so. I think it's to the benefit of the game. BJ. Yeah, BJ agrees. Thought it was weird to find odds were pretty much the most important thing. They are the be-all and end-all. Once you discover how important odds are, you can almost forget about everything else. It's a combination of odds and performance, but it should be less about the odds. Should be a factor of the performance and other elements, not the other way around, that the odds are determining the performance and the results. And that's basically what's happening to a larger extent. No, I don't think so. Slow picking, that it leaves a bigger gap of knowledge between the early adopters and new users. In fact, I would argue the absolute opposite of that. The absolute opposite. Once you get to 200 races, you will have the same knowledge about that horse as I do with Grandeur or Breathless Edge. Because that horse will have eventually reached the statistics that suggest that this horse wins at 30% at 2,200. And at that point, if you put it up against the best horses in the game and it can't maintain that 22%, like you're seeing some of these new guns coming in, there was Rendezvous Peak, it wouldn't matter if that horse didn't show its odds because it was 30% winner, and then when it joined the races against the best of the best, it was still maintaining a 20% win rate. So I would argue that it doesn't create a bigger gap, it creates a lesser gap, because the newbies come in and they don't realise that the odds are so important. So for a period of a month, 3 or 4 weeks, depending on how much study they put into the game, they're sort of entering races a little bit blind. And what I want to do is put the blindfold on the rest of the field to a degree, so that we all don't really know how great our horse is until 50 or 100 races. It just makes so much sense. And I wouldn't be so passionate about it if I didn't think it was the future of the game. I absolutely think it has to be. I absolutely think it has to be. Yeah, BJ, it just makes no sense, does it? That we're just sort of looking at the underlying characteristics of the horse. We're like looking into the future. We go, well, if this horse races 1,000 races, this is what's going to happen. We already know the future. And it kind of sucks. I want to go, in 1,000 races, I wonder if this horse could actually win 100, 150, maybe. It's won its first, it's on the right track. But if you've won your first at 20 to 1, and you know how odds work, you know that horse isn't going to be winning 150 races, more than likely, over in the next 1,000. Beyond, would this require a complete reset? I don't think so, maybe. I don't think it's necessary. I think that would be a very drastic situation. Again, for the fact that all we need to do Yeah, sure, you can enter a horse with one race up in Class 1 if you like. But I would like to see it flipped around where you can't enter a horse with 500 races with known odds down into a sub 100 race field. Okay, so all we need to do is maybe have sub 100 race classes, 2 or 3 classes, 4 or 5 classes down there. And then you sort of progress to, the next level of races once you hit the 100 race mark. And that might be a natural point of retiring some of these horses. Who knows? But maybe, look, as much as I hate resets, and I wouldn't want to see another one because I think they are very destructive to the ecosystem of the game. I think this is just about as important as a topic as any to start discussing that possibility. I don't think it's necessary. Yeah, not many people paying their entry fee today. That's okay. 14 likes, 24 users. I'm very appreciative on a Saturday morning, my time, to have you guys here. UFO note agrees. Good point on odds discovery. Do you talk to the devs? No, the devs are very proactive and watching. So if we all start talking about the fact that the odds are somewhat detrimental to gameplay, they will pick up on that and start discussing it themselves. I mean, if you believe that what I've said makes a lot of sense, then, message it to Rob or Jay or Ebbs or any of these guys and just say, hey, have a watch of this. See what you think. I think he's onto something. Some of the other people will think that I'm a complete kook, lost my marbles, but anyway. Power up. Do I think more race attributes contributing will help? No. No, I've thought about this, and I think that will be the line you get from a lot of the people that think odds are good and are taking the opposite stance to what I'm suggesting and maybe removing the odds or at least deriving them in a different manner. I think that they will argue that more attributes levels the field out, but no, it doesn't. If those attributes are going to be included in the odds, it worsens the scenario. Okay, it makes that scenario even worse because then that discovery that they're trying to add is just like, okay, well, I enter against a similar field in gate 10 and then a similar field in gate 12 and my odds varied by X, Y or Z, then you're going to really figure that out really, really quickly as well. Now, it will add a little bit more mystery, but I would love to see a lot more mystery, and I think this needs to be discussed and maybe the next thing brought in. Put a cloak over the odds for a while and let's test it. Let's see how that works. Let's put a bug in the odds and so they're not visible at all for a couple of months and see what happens. I don't think we'll miss them, and I think it will be interesting. But look, I'm looking forward to the extra attributes. But if the odds are reflected in, the attributes, then we just are back at the same position essentially. Robert thinks there's more behind the scenes than odds. How do I explain the first or last phenomenon of the top horses? I explained that in yesterday's video. Jump back and have a look at that and how first and last affects the odds. First or last does have a major effect on the odds in the fact that when those horses run a good run, they normally finish first. But they only have that good run every 4 or 5 races. So yeah, the odds in conjunction with win percentages allow you to see how good that horse is in just a couple of races. Yeah, at power. Yeah, you're saying the same thing as me, BJ, because once you have those extra attributes, if those attributes are reflected in the odds, then there's no more mystery, or it's limited mystery. I mean, to a certain degree, you could show the odds in a more general way. Okay, so show the odds. Average out the odds over every single distance and every single attribute, which gives you a base odds for that particular horse. But then you have to, and those base odds basically, don't change a lot. I don't think that's a good way either, but it would be a way to say, well, okay, I'm getting these odds across these races, but I can beat the odds if I race at 1,000 or 1,200, and I get worse results than the odds if I race at 2.4 or 2.6, you know. That would be a way, but I think the better way is to just derive the odds from a different manner. Just derive the odds from horse history, you know, like it's meant to be. Like it's meant to be. Yeah, there's no doubt, Douglas, that the new factors will create a longer discovery period. It won't take you 50 races. Well, it might take you 50 races to completely dial it in. Okay, but wouldn't it, just for me, it would be nicer to remove that altogether so that even after 200 or 500 races, you're still sort of going, you know, I'm not sure if it's the distance preference or if it's the gate or if it's the weather or if it's the location or a combination of all of those that are resulting in my horse liking to race 2,000 from gate 11 in Australia in the wet. Now your horse might only be really favourable in 3 of those conditions, and maybe gate 11 is not the perfect gate and it's gate 2. But if you don't explore and you just stay in 11, then you do pretty well. But maybe if you go to gate 2, then that is the perfect combination. Now if the odds are telling you, you know, that when you sort of do that discovery that in gate 11 versus similar field versus gate 2, you're $1 cheaper on the odds, you know, with all other factors being equal, you're going to discover that a little bit too easily for me. There's too much confluence between the odds and the strength of the horse. Okay, it's too accurate in my opinion. Yeah, steeplechase, add that too. Some horses will be better at jumping and steeple than others. Yeah, 100% power up. I think we all want to know if our horse is good or bad, but I want that to stretch out over 100 races or more. Currently, I can discover a good horse within probably 3 races, somewhere between 2 and 5. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And I've been able to do that for probably 6 months, and it's been a great advantage. But I want that advantage removed, and I'm not suggesting that I want it removed because other people are exploiting it. I want it removed because I'm exploiting it. I just think it removes the mystery. But what removing the odds would do is, you know, allow that mystery to stretch out over 20, 30 races. You know, some people are going to sell what looks to be a really gun horse because it's got great results over 10 or 15 races. And then the next owner is going to discover, well, it wasn't as good as we thought. But yeah, we'll eventually find out if a horse is a dud or not. But at the moment, we're discovering that way too early. You know, way too early. There's horses that I have in my stable, I probably don't have too many anymore, but that I used to have in my stable, they just have 2 or 3 runs because I'm like, it's the end of the road for that horse. But, you know, those 2 or 3 runs usually result in 1 or 2 places, or maybe even a first place. If I didn't look at the odds or didn't know how important those odds were, I would keep running that horse. Thanks for bumping those likes up, guys. 23 likes, 26 people watching. Agree, UFO nut, it would increase racing volume massively. And then it's going to reward the players that really have a good eye for scouting horses. At the moment, it's just easy. So at the moment, you go, well, that's clearly a great horse. Everyone knows it's a great horse. The only people that don't are the brand new players in that probably get sniped their horse away. You know, someone goes, I'll give you an ETH for that. And they think, yes, it's probably worth 5 ETH. Luke D, how are you, Luke? What's the strategy when you have 4 horses that just don't race well? Breed them, see how you go, sell them. You could wait for these new traits. Like, to be honest, how much difference are these new traits going to make? From what I'm hearing from the devs, it's only fractions of percents. It's not like, I don't think it's going to be that a mud runner, if you're a mud runner, you're going to be 50% better. It might be, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be quite that dramatic though. So yeah, 4 horses that don't race well, if they've got good bloodlines, you could try and breed them and hope the skip generation theory is a thing. Yeah, if the attributes are reflected in the odds, takes away, in my opinion. It's already reflecting the distance attribute very accurately, and that's one of the biggest problems. Yeah, we could do a bit of organised warfare on the odds API, couldn't we? We won't do that though. Yeah, BJ, the odds in real life are derived from historical performance and move based on the money. Yep, absolutely. It should be exactly the same here. Zed's success has to mimic real life. Yeah, look, currently I don't think we can, or Zed can. It's hard for me to see how Zed can create a realistic betting platform based on the fact on how accurate those odds are and the fact that we can see them. There is no mystery, and it becomes like one of those silly horse racing simulation games, and I don't think we want it. We want it to be more than that. You know, the horse racing simulation games just basically are exactly this. This is what they exactly are to my knowledge. In Australia, we have one. I can't think what it's called. Do you guys remember what the horse simulation game in the pubs and clubs is called? Where they got the digital horses? It's fun, but essentially it's like a glorified poker machine where, you know, it says, okay, the number 11 horse is going to be 100 to 1. And the number 2 horse is 2 to 1. Okay, and it's got to be proverbially fair, or whatever that term is. I'm not even sure what that term I'm trying to say, but you know, the one that gets bandied around. So it has to be that for them to get their gaming license, and maybe this is the angle we're going, but it's going to be at the detriment of the actual gameplay and the simulation. Now, if you look at the bigger picture, I think the horse racing needs to steer clear of being another simulation type game and be a game where the odds are derived by reality of the racing results and the reality of the racing genetics. You know, we go down that simulation path. Again, I've played the simulation and it's fun to have a beer for a couple of goes. But I haven't played that for 10 years because it doesn't keep drawing me back. Whereas a game of discovery, where we don't know if you have the next Breathless, or you don't know if you have the next Zombie Boy until 100 or 200 races is proven. At the moment, everyone's lauding these new horses after 20 races. Oh, the next Zombie Boy, it's won 10 races from 20 and its odds are $4.50. We shouldn't be lauding horses until they're 200 races in. Yeah, trackside, mate. BJ, trackside. Gets old real quick. Old real quick because it's a simulation and the results are based closely on the simulation. When you see those odds on trackside, the 3 to 1 horse is going to win roughly 3 to 1, and the 4 to 1 roughly 4 to 1, and the 5, you know, it's very closely tied to that. Now, if we derive the odds from something other than the underlying talent of the horses, I don't know. I mean, I need the Zed developers to talk to me whether that's a possibility or whether that's legally challenging. It might well be. But maybe we need to take a step back and get the gameplay right first before we think about, you know, if we've got a great game, then we've got a great future. If we've got a shitty game, probably can't say that. Cut that out. Live. If we've got a game that's no good, then the future is bleak. You know, get the game right first. It's got to be gameplay first. Don't let future partnerships, to a degree, don't let them be detrimental to the gameplay. If that's, if we need to get gambling contracts in the future, let's look at other ways of getting them rather than this simulation way. I think the simulation odds method is not cool. Douglas, I think there's many upsides to this. Douglas says this might also decrease the supply of horses as people will spend more time focusing. Yeah, at the moment it's like race 1, 2, 3 times, sell them because we know. And then we hand the problem over to some other newbie. You know what I mean? That kind of sucks in itself. So you won't be able to do that. If you want to sell a horse after 10 races, you're either going to have to take a slight discount if your horse has got 10 races and 4 wins. Looks really good. but you're not going to be able to get 8 ETH because it's not proven over 50 or 100. You won't get that big money till you prove that horse over 100 or 200 races. And then hand over the data and say, right, from a training perspective, here's the data package on this horse. This is what works. How much more fun would that be? Surely, do you agree? Give me a thumbs up if you agree that that would be a much more engaging gameplay experience than the current system of seeing a dud horse after 1 to 2 races. Even one race. If your horse turns up in the Griffey 50 to 1, shut the gate. You're done. All right. Yeah, give me a shout if you got anything to add to the conversation. If you got anything to add to the conversation, or otherwise we'll wrap this up shortly. But it looks like a few of you are sort of on board. Yep, thumbs up, BJ. Cool. Thanks for the support. And look, it's not about gathering support. You know, I don't care if the community as a whole doesn't think this is a thing. I'd happily to go with the community base, but I think it makes too much sense not to at least consider it as a future option. I agree, O'Wiley. Plenty of sites with access to race data. There's so many stats gurus out there. Let's get someone to create another site opposed from Zest that creates the odds based on genetics, based on race results, based on cross-referencing those horse race results against other horse race results. There's heaps of stats already that we can do that. And then, you know, we'll start to develop these ways of making a book for the horses that have only raced 1, 2, 3 or 10 races, and that's half of the fun. If you think you got a good horse in a Griffin and it's showing 15 or 20 to 1, then you put your house on it. You know, you put all your zest on it because you think, damn, this horse is showing at 15 to 1, but its parents are Grandeur and Breathless Edge and da-da-da. Oh, thanks UFO Night, yeah, for linking this to Rod. I think this is huge as a direction for the game myself, and that's why I bring it up. What am I planning on next drop? I'll do a video on that this week, NDK. What am I planning on the next drop? I'm going to try and get a couple of Z1s if I can. They're running out real quick. And then after that, and I'll talk about this in more depth, but after that, I see a lot of value in the lower end of each bloodline. So the Z2s, I think, are more value for money than the ones, but I still like the ones because they are the top of the pops. And then I think the Z4s are better value than the 3s, and the 10s are better value than the 8s, and the same with the Finnies. What are they? The 7s are better value than the 5s, in my opinion. Will it be hard? I don't know. I assume it's going to be hard to buy a horse. Lebonova, give me a sub if you're the first time here. That would be really, really nice. I assume it's going to be difficult. I don't know what the format will be then. Logos, new to Zed. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah, I agree with that as well, Logos, that it's hard to get in at the moment because of the resale pumps. I do think they're somewhat artificial too, and but I don't know. It's hard to tell. It's hard. With stocks when they're flying, like in a hyped up bull run. You know, you could. I look, to be honest, I thought Bitcoin was going to correct from 20k, right? And this is similar. I thought Bitcoin was going to correct at 20,000 and give me another opportunity back at 14. But it didn't. And luckily I didn't sell all my Bitcoin at 20 and hope to get back in at 14 because it never came around again, did it? And this is kind of similar with where we're at with Zed Run. Like if you're thinking, oh, I'll wait for a correction, then I think the biggest opportunity we have currently is to buy at the drops because they seem to be at a very reasonable price, and then just hang on for the ride from there. I mean, not financial advice for anyone looking to invest. Douglas, I like the idea, but how would this affect horses like Baroque? No, well, I think they're already at the point where it doesn't matter, Douglas. Baroque and Breathless and Grandeur have got 500 races, so I think that's somewhat non-consequential. Consequential is what I meant to say. What I would implement though is that there is a different set of classes for the horses that have yet to reach, say, 100 races. Or there might even be a class for horses, you know, the first 10 or 15 races might be against all sort of those type horses. And that gives you a really great idea of where these horses sit amongst similar competition. And then you move from there to the next class system. This really needs some thought. You move from there to the next class system, might be from 15 to 50. And that then gives you a great idea. And that class system may then be split up into 3 separate classes. You know, we call it Class 2A, Class 2B, Class 2C. The 2 referring to how many races you've run, and the ABC to the class of field you're in. Okay, and that might be for the next 50, or the next 45, or 35, or probably the next 50, let's say. That sounds about right. And that would then place you, so you've now got about 65 races under your belt, and you would start to see some real champions emerge. And then you move to what might be the final level, which would be Class 3 A, B, C, D, E, something like that. And then you start to race against, you know, the best of the best. But by that stage, you've got 65 races, and if you're running at 20%, you've probably got a pretty reasonable horse. So then you start testing it against the Barocks and the Breathless Edges and these types of horses, and you keep a gauge on how you're performing. If you're still winning 1 in 5, 1 in 6 races, then you've got something special. I think like, it makes a lot of sense. Okay, Zed Run Tools. Check out Zed Run Tools, and I am going to, in my description in the future, I'll do this over the weekend, I'm going to add all the great tools and all the great Zed Run community members that you should be following on Twitter and YouTube, and these incredible tools like Zed Run Tools. Is it Zed Run Tools dot something or other? I'll give you a quick shout out. I'll go find it here. Let me see if I can find it. Let me find Zed Run Tools. Yeah, www.zedrun.tools is the one you're looking for, guys. It's a great little site, and they're looking at starting to make their own books, their own odds books, which would be awesome. It would be so much awesome to derive these odds from another source and hide the Zest odds altogether. BJ, okay, we'll answer a few more questions because I'm having some fun and you guys are awesome. Nice little 33 going today. For people just looking to build up some ETH short term, the odds are great. Yeah, I agree. I just don't like that you can throw a horse away after one run. And you pretty much can. Yeah, well, it's not 100% guaranteed, but if you get 50 to 1 or 40 to 1 in Griffin, you're about a 20 to 1 shot to have any value anywhere. Yeah. Slow picking. Slop icking. Do I see myself trying to perfect the Nakamoto line before I move to start crossing other lines? To a degree, yes. The Nakamoto line is my priority, and I'm doing it really slowly. If you look at my stable, or if you look at what I'm doing, I'm bringing the breeds down, then running them, selecting the very best, and then bring them down again. Select the very best, bring them down again. It may not be to my advantage, to be honest, but it's my hunch, and you've got to follow your hunch. That's what the gameplay is all about. That's why breeding is brilliant, because we don't know much. Imagine if we had an odds score on how good a mare or stallion was at breeding. You know, it's the same thing. It just sucks the life out of the gameplay. Bullish. Yeah, I'm bullish overall, but it won't be without hiccups. Logos. It won't be without hiccups. I just don't know how much further it runs before it corrects. It's really hard to tell. But when you have these games with limited horses and exploding popularity or exploding game base members, it could just go ballistic, but there will be pullbacks at some stage. And from a beginner's perspective, and I'll talk about this, we'll do a Zed Run risks video next week as well. But from a beginner's perspective, like, not financial advice obviously, but I wouldn't jump in and spend, if your budget's 10,000 USD or 5 ETH or whatever it happens to be, I wouldn't jump in and spend it in the first week, because you're going to get dud horses more than likely. You know, go and buy a $150 horse, and just, if you can't see one on Matic OpenSea, private message, just cold call people on the forum that you see there. Be careful, not everyone's trustworthy, so make sure you get some people like myself to vouch for different people or whatnot. But look, if you're only spending $150, then I guess there's not a great deal of risk, is there? And it will give you the ability to play and understand the game before you decide where to spend the rest of your budget. Ryan, finally able to tune in. Yeah, I just felt inspired, and I'm not a time slot guy, so it's great to be able to reach some other people that are not within the normal time frame. John, I think there's so much demand, the price will just be going up. There's not enough supply for everyone. I agree. 28,000 on Discord. Yeah, it'll probably be 35 by the next drop, I would guess too. I think you're right there. And who knows how many horses. What did we have last time? We had about 4,000 or something, I think. It wouldn't surprise me if they do a mega drop, but there still won't be enough to go around. Ryan, I think people will breed just about anything with anything, regardless when they open breeding up, regardless if it's before the drop or after the drop. I think if it's before the drop, then we'll probably get slightly more of a spike. But if it's, I think we'll still get, look, if it's open for an entire month, last time it was open for like 3 days, and I think we bred 3,500 horses. Now, that's not going to be 1,000 horses a day over the entire month, probably. You probably won't see 30,000 horses enter the ecosystem in 1 month. You might, but it will be close to that. It's probably like 20,000 a month, I would say. 2,000. Okay, my stats are slightly off. Okay, 2,000 was last time apparently in 3 days. So maybe 15,000 if we open it for an entire month. But it will be exponential from there as well. 15 1 month, and then the next month will probably be 20, and then 30, 35, 50. Before you know it, we'll be producing 100,000 horses a month. Whether we have the players to suck them up, different story altogether. GCE, missed the last drop, bought 2 dogs, how do I recover? You know, welcome to the Zed Run initiation period, really. And that's, look, I'd like any newbies, buy the cheapest horse you can so that you know what you're dealing with. Research the odds, research the stats, and how paid races and free races are slightly different stats or different weight to those stats before you really invest big time. How do you recover? Again, I don't know, not financial advice, but buy some horses at the drop. That's where they're the best value. And they're unraced and unbred, so there's no kind of bias there. You get what you're given, you know. You get as lucky as, if I buy at the drop, there's no selective knowledge that can help me buy a better horse than you. So it's a level playing field, whereas once they start racing, then my knowledge is a supreme advantage because I know exactly what to look for, and I can see it currently, and that's the problem with the odds. I can see it within limited races, 5 races maximum, and I know if that horse is a potential future champ or not. Do I think Genesis horses will still be profitable in 6 months' time? In my opinion, yes. Yes, I think they're extremely important to the breeding program, which gives them a longevity of not only months, gives them a longevity of multiple years, you know, even tens of years, hundreds of years, because they're so important to, or they seem to be, in my opinion, only my opinion, so important to the breeding aspect. They are the carriers of the genetics, and always will be. Yeah, okay, we're going to wrap it up there. Thanks again for watching along. If you think I made some sense, then be sure to shout it out and link it in the forum or whatnot, or share the video with your Zed friends and see if they agree. If not, no big deal. I'm only shouting this out because I think it's better for the game. And next week, as I said, we might do a risk assessment video, and we'll do a few other videos. We might touch on breeding as well. All right, guys, let's wrap it up there. I will catch you next week. Thanks again.